Bitcoin is a perfect tool to capture the fruit of labor.
The bananas, the cars, the houses, whatever you want to buy, the prices are falling against Bitcoin.
Bitcoin will actually make you humble.
Bitcoin is a system that is based on love.
When the money is fixed, I think almost every other puzzle is fixed.
How did you came into Bitcoin with FoMohit? Like, did you go all in when you came into Bitcoin, or like, how did this all happen?
Oh, well, so I'll give you my background. So I'm a former badminton international. Badminton is a sport. It's an Olympic sport. So I'm a former badminton international player representing India. So I've most of my youth has been spent in playing badminton, representing country. I've won a lot of medals for my country. And in 2015, I retired from my professional sports and got into professional coaching, where in the next 4 5 years I made a lot of name and taught a lot of children about my sport. And I own an academy too. In 2020 March, during the COVID times, everything stopped. My income stopped, and there was nothing to work on. Everybody were at home, and at that time we were all hooked up on the digital media, right? So I just came across a video called Bitcoin documentary, and I randomly saw it in the night, and I was curious to know how do people make money? What exactly is money? Until then, I don't have a background of economics or stock market, nothing. It's just pure sports. I'm a pure sportsman. And after seeing that video, it kind of built a curiosity in me that what exactly is money. And I saw one video of followed by one video of Michael Saylor. And Bitcoin is the digital money, and it's going to be the future. And that's where I got into it, and everything followed. But I was also into the cryptocurrency, and I thought, why do I buy satoshis or point Bitcoin in point decimals, then when I can buy hundreds and thousands of Shiba Inu Bitcoins, or probably Wink Bitcoins? That was the things which was fed to us through Telegram and all. So I had my own journey of getting into shitcoins, then understanding what exactly is cryptocurrency, what is blockchain, what is Bitcoin, why Bitcoin. And ultimately now I have understood that Bitcoin is something which is totally different. And here you go.
It's fascinating how people discover Bitcoin only. I think almost everybody is at some point in shitcoins or altcoins or cryptocurrencies outside of Bitcoin, but they all come back to Bitcoin at some point. Some are like longer there, sometimes actually are really deep into there, but somehow all come back. But what I'm really interested in with you, I think sports is teaching you a lot. I
Yeah.
also was on the highest swimming level in Austria, like in the Austrian National. I was a swimmer. Never got to Olympia, never got to bigger events. Austrian level was the biggest I got. But I learned a lot for life from sport, like discipline, stuff like that, keeping up, being consistent. What did like the badminton sport teach you? What you found good to learn about Bitcoin and learn about also other stuff like coaching, entrepreneurship? What did the sports part teach you in later your life?
Yeah, so primarily sports teaches not only me, I mean, including everyone, whoever is getting into sports, right? There are hundreds of things which you can learn. So, but I would relate to 5 key learnings I feel humanity has to learn through sport. There's one, discipline, because to achieve anything in life, discipline is the first thing. Now, if you're not consistent enough, disciplined enough, I don't think so you can achieve anything greater in life. The second one is determination. You set a goal for yourself and you have to be determined to achieve that, consistently go back to that, be determined every day, have that motivation to get up every day and chase your goals. The third one is persistence. Perseverance. I'm sorry. So you have to go back again and again and again. And the fourth one is courage. And the fifth one, to be more creative, because everybody plays sports, everybody competes to win that medal or to become a champion. But what separates a champion to others is to be more creative in what he has learned through sport. And this is where I felt when I got connected to Bitcoin is, it's the perfect tool. Bitcoin is a perfect tool, or you can call it as a perfect instrument to capture the fruit of labor. I'll give you an example. So I have won around 800 medals overall, including my state, my region, my national, and total, international too. So today, after 20 years of my professional sport, I have actually nothing to show or to store that, this is what I have done. But when I compare this to Bitcoin, I felt like, okay, this is the perfect instrument to capture my value, which I have, given every day for 8 hours or 9 hours. I'm teaching and I'm getting something back, and I can store it forever, and I can give it to my younger generation and the next generation and the next generation, which is immutable, confiscable. You can travel it. You can take it with you anywhere in the world. I mean, it's beautiful, right? What do you think?
Yeah, it's. I think that's the most important thing about Bitcoin. The aspect that you can store your life's energy in there.
Yeah,
You played sports. Other people are just working some normal jobs. Maybe some is like a doctor. Maybe like a singer. Like there are so many different jobs. And what Bitcoin enables us is to not worry about finances after you worked. Like you come home, you're maybe a doctor, you save life during the day, then you come home and you have to be a picker, you have to be a portfolio manager to keep
yeah,
up with inflation. And Bitcoin allows you to just don't worry about that and just
yeah.
get your financial energy, put it in Bitcoin, and you can store it for how long you ever want. You can store it for your children, you can store it for yourself later in your life. And this is the biggest thing that people don't get because they only see the short-term volatility. Like, oh,
Yeah.
it crashes 10% down. Oh, it got up 20%. How can it be stable? How can it store anything? But they don't see the long-term vision of it.
So why do you think that people don't get it? Because right now you mentioned that people don't get it. The life energy can be stored in a great way, but people don't get it. So that's what you mentioned. Why do you think that people don't get it?
I think, and this is gets back to what people cannot do, I think, right now is critical thinking. People see and hear stuff and they just believe it. And most people are on autopilot because they are in their lane. They are doing whatever they have to do to survive. They have a family, they have kids, they have to do so much stuff. They're so involved with their life that they don't even have the time to sit down in a day and read a book for an hour. Most people don't have the luxury to think and sit down and like, oh, what is money actually? Like this is a luxury what people have when they can just sit down and be like, let's sit down and enjoy a book. Let's read the Bitcoin Standard. Let's read Rich Dad Poor Dad. Let's read some of the important books you have to read to understand money. And
Yes.
if people cannot do that, how can they understand a concept that has been fed to them that this is actually wrong? So I think, and this is also a big motivation of my podcast, to bring it to as many people as I can. I have this goal this year to interview 300 Bitcoiners. Why do I do so many Bitcoin interviews? Because everybody has something different. And to show my girlfriend an interview, I will pick something that is suited for her. To show my mom an interview, I pick something suited for her. I want as many different views on Bitcoin as possible because for everyone it's something different. Like for me, it was also Michael Saylor, the big one
Yeah.
that got me really deep into Bitcoin. It looks like it also was for you. But for
Yeah.
someone else, it's saying, "Oh, I don't like Michael Saylor. I'm hating him. I like more the technical guys that I programming on Bitcoin." So for everyone, it's someone different, and that's why I want to have as many people on, so we can orange pill as many people because it's important that people know about it. Of course, we can just wait. Like Bitcoin is inevitable; everybody will get it at some point, but it's
Yeah.
better we get it faster. Yeah? What do you think about it?
Oh, yeah. So when you mentioned that, not many people sit and just calmly think about what is money. Because when I thought about myself when I was 16-year-old, I was just a monster of energy. I could lift weights around 200, 300 pounds, and I could do so many things. I was so energetic. I played around. That energy was kind of unlimited. I felt like a Hulk. But as now I'm getting older, I'm not that old. Excuse me. I'm just 36. But the body feeling and the energy feeling when you were at 20 or 25 is not the same when it is 35 or 36. So you kind of lose the energy. And when I compared this with money concept and the Bitcoin, how about an idea where the life energy is stored and it always expands? You know what did you get what I'm saying? It's like always expanding. The value of Bitcoin is always growing. The energy is always growing.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
I,
I think it's even, I mean, it's kind of the same result, but I see it differently because I see Bitcoin as the constant, and we are constantly getting better in doing stuff. So everything is actually getting cheaper. I mean, it's the same
yes,
thing as it's just the other way of looking at it. And I just released yesterday the podcast with Jeff Poof, and maybe I'm right now in this Jeff Poof deflationary mindset
yeah,
because it's like money is like constant. It should not be manipulated. And in
correct.
that way, it's expanding in value. So if you keep on it, the value is expanding on it because the bananas, the cars, the houses, whatever you want to buy, the prices
Yes,
are falling against Bitcoin, against sound money. And people
yes.
have a hard time understanding that. Like it's so hard to get this inflationary mindset out of their minds.
Yes, because that system is designed to create artificial value. It's always that artificial value is going up. That's where I think Bitcoin is an antivirus, an antidote for that system, where it is actually getting all these things to a right price value. Why do you think Bitcoin is growing and other compared to or pegged to Bitcoin, the other things are getting devalued? Because it is trying to make those things humble. Bitcoin will actually make you humble.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing because I think Jeff Poof's company is actually called Ego Dev Capital.
Mhm.
And he also talks a lot about how Bitcoin kills your ego because most people did not get in 2009. So
Yeah,
most people saw Bitcoin rising up a lot. And
yeah,
I don't know about your story, but I saw Bitcoin from 2017 the first time because I'm
okay.
right now 25. So 2017, I was really young back then. I was, yeah, 2019, something like that.
Mhm.
So it was really early for me to invest in Bitcoin. But I saw it rising to like the almost 20,000, then crashing back down. And then I
Yeah,
did not get in. I was the 100% sure it's a scam. And then in 2020, I got it. But but I
okay,
saw it rising up, and I had the opportunity to get so many more Bitcoin at 3,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. And
okay,
I bought most of my Bitcoin under 10,000, but I also bought a lot of my Bitcoin stack on 60,000 in
okay.
2021 when I went actually all in. And this is, I think, a hard thing. Like when you
Yeah,
see it rising and falling, you have to get over you and say, oh shit, I was wrong.
yeah.
And now I get into it. And I don't care that there's someone inside Bitcoin that is there for 5 years, was
Mhm.
earlier clever than me and got it first than me
Yeah,
and benefits from me getting into it later now. You have to get
absolutely.
over this step, and it's hard for a
Yes.
lot of people. As
That's
I
a
say,
journey.
I see.
That's a journey, Robin. Like how we all have gone through our education, right? So, 4 years of university and 2 years of the university, and that's where you kind of get matured while into that journey. And that was also true for me. So, started with shitcoin and more of shitcoin and more of shitcoin, then got into gambling. Then I understood the difference between shitcoins and Bitcoin. So, slowly started studying more and more and more, and then it's just pure love, and that keeps you more humble. And why, the concept of why Bitcoin, there is no second best, what Michael Saylor says, right? And that's just pure genius. And I feel you will also have to have a small understanding of how an economy functions. um, how commodities are priced, how how what are securities, what is geopolitics. If you have a small background in that, right, it's easier for you to understand what exactly is Bitcoin and what is it doing for humanity.
Yeah, and the whole game theory you also have to understand then, and the psychology behind that. What I'm also really interested with you, and I don't know how religious you are, but
Mm.
most Indians I met, they are way more religious than the Austrians I meet, where I'm
Okay.
from. And most Bitcoiners I meet are not all of them, but some of them are really religious, and they have this connection between Christianity and Bitcoin. And I
Okay.
never talked with, I guess you're a Hindu, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I never talked with a Hindu. Do you do you also see a connection between religion and Hindu and Bitcoin? I mentioned it to you before that I have actually an
Yes.
Indian girlfriend, so I get also a
Mhm.
little bit into this culture because it's
Yes.
I try to get what she is talking all day.
Okay.
But how do you see the connection between religion, India, and also like the Bitcoin triangle?
I don't think so. It's connected deeply like that right now, but I think in the next few years, people would find a I wouldn't take it as a connection, but yes, a similarity where most of it is true. You know, what makes a religious person? I mean, that's just a question for you. Who is a religious person?
That's a really hard question for because I would myself not declare myself a religious person, but we all think of something bigger than us. Like we all
Yes,
have some beliefs that there's something bigger than us. If you don't have
yes,
this belief, I think you're on a wrong path.
yes,
And we all think of something different. That's like on a we and it all comes down from me to values. Like what values do you believe in?
exactly.
And they're like different stories with Christianity, with Hinduism. Like there are different stories ingrained in that.
Yes,
But if you actually look at what those stories teach us, what those values are abstracted from that, it
yeah,
actually comes down that, and there's also the connection between what I see with Bitcoin as Christianity and Bitcoin. There's like values to it connected. And I mean, in the end of the day, Bitcoin is just money. So we should
yeah,
not put Bitcoin in some religious things. We should put Bitcoin not in some political thing. It's just money in the end of the day. And actually, it should actually divide everything from money. Like right now,
correct,
Bitcoin is right now money is involved in state and politics because it's like kind of a product from politics, but we
correct.
want to have this separated. So I'm also finding it's interesting when people see that connection, but obviously it's not always connected. For me, it's not that connected, but I'm just was wondering because a lot of Christianity connects it with Bitcoin.
Yeah. So in Hindu, there is one uh, in the Vedas. I don't know whether you know or no. There are four different holy books. It's called Vedas in our religion. So in that one of the Vedas, they have mentioned that there are emotions for human beings. It's called Adshat Vairi Gadus, which means these are the emotions which can really ruin a human being. So it's called. I'll just mention first with the Sanskrit language. Kama, Krodha, Moha, Mada, Lobha, Matsara. There are six different emotions. Kama is not exactly sex, but it's kind of a lust. Krodha is anger. Mada is something which you want more and more. It's kind of a greed. That's an emotion, right? It's a greed. Mada is attachment. Sorry, Moha is attachment. Mada is greed. Matsara is something which is, I want it, but I don't want, I want to have more Bitcoin. I don't want Robin to have more Bitcoin. You get what I'm saying? So it's like,
Yeah.
selfishness, right? So these six emotions, if you really see, Bitcoin will actually control it. You cannot manipulate it. Yeah, you can't, have that anger. Oh, I lost it. No, even if you stack little Satoshis over a period of time, you can have your own freedom out of it. So this is
And
where I see that you can have a connection between human emotions and Bitcoin. I would put it across this way rather than putting it with religion.
Yeah, I think this is a better way to put it, like with human emotions and finding truth. And it's also Bitcoin is so hard to everyone because it has like it treats everyone the same. Everyone
Same.
has the same rule set. You cannot cheat. If you mess up your private custodial setup, you will get rug pulled. You will get
Yeah.
hacked because people
Yeah.
know that there is something. If you sell it, then it will
Yeah.
shoot up 100%, and you will have to buy
Yeah.
back at more. Like, and this is also comes back to the to the humbles
Yeah.
you stuff.
Yeah.
And you also wrote a nice tweet. I saw it from you where you talked about. I think how was it? The two most cheapest things right now is satoshis and sun, and I love
Yeah.
that.
Absolutely. How can people not get it? It's so cheap. Solar energy is so cheap. We are all we call it in Hindu Surya Vamshi, which means we belong to sun. There are organisms in this planet on this planet which belong to moon energy, right? Like bats, owls. They all get activated in the nights, and we are like solar powered beings. And that's cheap. That's you go morning on the terrace, you have that energy. And right now, if you can stack satoshis, which is hardly less than a cent, you cannot imagine how free you can be in your life in the next 15 to 20 years when it comes to a close to a 10% or 20% adoption. For that's why I told you, you need to have a little bit of introduction or a background for geopolitics, money, economics. I can't imagine how brilliant Satoshi was. Whoever
Yeah.
that that being was, he is brilliant. The way he has coded, the way he has involved economics, um, building that scarcity, the hash which he has created, absolutely genius. Absolutely genius.
Also, the story he has created, the origin story that he was never doxxed. Like nobody knows who he is or who she is
Yeah.
or who they are. The perfect story for the perfect money. I always say it's like you could not do it better. If you want to, if you are now, and I do this with a lot of people that don't get Bitcoin are against Bitcoin. I ask them the question, okay, what is perfect money for you? And I actually
Mm.
did this with a class, like a school's class. I was invited to speak somewhere in a university, and there were like people between like 20 and 25, so around my age. And I went with them through that thing. I was completely interactive. I did not give anything out. And I asked them, okay, if you can now create the perfect money, what do
Mm.
you want the perfect money to be? And after a while, we actually came right to the properties that Bitcoin has.
Mm.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I want my money to last long. I don't want it to lose energy. Then
Yeah.
I want my money to be accepted everywhere. I
Yeah.
want to be it similar. Like we went all to the unit of account, medium of exchange, store of value, and I just collected them and write them on the paper, and then we went through them. Like we went, okay, is our stocks good money? Is our fiat currency good money? Is Bitcoin good money? And we came to the conclusion together that Bitcoin
Mm.
is the perfect money. And it's
Yes.
amazing when you ask people, what's the perfect money? And let's really go through it. What do you want money to be? The end conclusion is Bitcoin. It's so simple.
Yes. No, even the general elections are about to come for at least in India. It's in May, end of May. I think also it is at the same time in US. I think in November, or is it during October? I
Yeah.
was thinking, we vote for few people to make our lives better, to make our lives in lead in such a way that we have the satisfaction in our old age that yes, we have lived a fantastic life. But right now, if you see the statistics, US is under the debt of 34 plus trillion, and every 100 days, 1 trillion has been printing.
Mm.
That means what? So they are trying to borrow from the future generation. So if I'm a US citizen, my children who are never born yet, they are directly born into a system which is on the debt, and they have to start paying the debt from the day one. That's something which is ridiculous. And I feel that, when we vote for certain people, a group of people will decide what our futures want to be. I don't want a future like that. And I feel the Gen Alpha and the generation, the last 20 years or 30 years generation, has to really stand up and, have to fight for our liberty. And that's what I feel. And I think Michael Saylor is somewhere trying to lead that, and I'm very happy about it.
Do you see or how do you see Bitcoin changing politics in the long run? Like right now, it obviously has not a huge impact.
Mhm.
But in like 10, 20, 50, 100 years, do you
Mhm.
see if we have a sound money system and it gets through the grassroots movement to
Mhm.
everybody, do you see a change in our political system?
That's a very tricky question. So I would say that Bitcoin might not be the ultimate currency for the next 100 to 200 years, because we have borders, right? India is a country, and we have a border, and what happens in that border has to stay in the border. Like, let's say it's a national defense. So I feel that there will be the governance, the government, where the governance is a part, right? So whatever is locally produced, the GDP which happens in the country, creates a value, and that value, attaching directly to a world reserve asset like Bitcoin, um, might be dangerous right now, if I feel. But if I will have to study more on that, how one currency of the world will govern the entire world, different nations, different cultures. um, it's difficult to imagine, because I have
Yeah,
not studied. Yeah.
it's extremely difficult to imagine because how does government pay for things? There's taxes, but the most part they're paying actually with printing money. If
Yeah.
you look like how much like it's debt. Like if you look
Yeah.
at US government, they have a lot of debt.
Yeah.
So where's the step coming from? Yeah, they are issuing money, they are printing money basically, and with that they're paying for it. And the USA is in a good position because they can export that debt to other countries. I think there's
Right.
something like 64 countries or something around that thing that they only use the US dollar. So if
Yeah.
they print, they can export the inflation and benefit
Yeah.
in the USA,
Yes.
which is an
Yes.
crazy concept if you see it.
Yes. Yes.
And if you then imagine everything is on the same layer, like all the countries are on Bitcoin and there are no national fiat currencies, which is completely crazy and unbelievable to even think of that. And it will take a long time. I don't know if I ever see this in my lifetime. It will take a long time for that to happen. And a lot of people, Bitcoiners
Yeah.
are like, oh, it will happen in the next 5 years, net 10 years. I think this will take way longer than that.
Yes.
But if you think of that, then is if you do something in India that benefits humanity, that also
Mm.
benefits everyone around the world.
Yeah.
So it's this kind of borders are kind of getting loose because all of a sudden the money is the same. And then how is the world then ordering itself, and how is war financed and stuff like that? That's really interesting. I also did not go extremely deep on that because
Yeah.
there are a lot of question marks in that. If that happens, how this happens, when this happens, what are the implications of that? But it's definitely a really really interesting.
So if you
Really,
understand,
really,
if you ask a question for yourself, why do people do a war? Because humans have that in DNA, that, I'm better than you, and I want to control things. I don't want to give the control to others. That's the basic reason I feel uh, the war happens. And now I feel, um, oh no, yeah. So as you said that, how do you see Bitcoin being the world one currency, and how do you think, what do you think about all the nations adopting to it? One imagination I could do was, if you see the recent 15 years, people have more adoption in business in different countries where their businesses are spread across the countries. Like that, the next generation, what do you call the generation? Gen Alpha, who were born after
uh,
2000?
yeah, Gen Alpha I think is the next one. Yeah.
Yeah. So So their life would be more about traveling and taking their life energy, which is stored in terms of Bitcoin, and they can travel all across the world and uh, have the visible account of that ledger on Bitcoin Core. And that's where I feel the adoption can run much faster. And the boomers and the Generation X, millennials, I think eventually they will put their all wealth into something called Bitcoin. And I don't see any other currency or crypto can even come closer to it, because you can just create out of thin air.
Do you
But Bitcoin,
see any threats to Bitcoin still? Like, is there anything? Do you see any cases where, like, when this happens, this would be really bad for Bitcoin, or this could happen, this could be bad for Bitcoin? Do you see any threats or dangers for Bitcoin?
uh, I want to think twice before I say this, because if you see BlackRock and Fidelity, right? So some of the major corporations of the world, uh, they have acquired Bitcoin, and they're giving it to the normal citizens in terms of ETF. If you want to buy Bitcoin, you have to buy ETF. They will hold, BlackRock will hold Bitcoin on behalf of you. You don't have to go through all phases of holding the keys, putting it under wallets, all these things. You don't have to do it. You just buy ETF. But if you want to get it to your own wallet, you cannot do that. You have to sell it back to them, and you can get in terms of cash. That means once the Bitcoin goes into their hands, you cannot get it back. Then there is the power which they have, and you will not be able to hold your own custody.
I'm super excited to announce that this podcast got the first ever sponsor. 21 Bitcoin is Bitcoin only from day one, and they teach and preach self custody. This is my go to exchange when someone asks me, oh, where can I buy my Bitcoin from? This is the easiest entry for Bitcoiners. And if you want lower fees, plus at the same time support this podcast, use code Robin and click the link in the description.
Yeah.
If you have Bitcoin, then have it yourself and not buy an IOU, because Bitcoin ETFs having Bitcoin on exchange is the same thing, in my opinion. It doesn't matter if it holds BlackRock or Coinbase. I mean, then the end, Coinbase is holding it anyways.
Yeah.
But hold your Bitcoin for yourself. This is also interesting, self custody, because we
Yeah.
still see small numbers of self custody people
Yeah.
are doing. Like when we see, oh, how many hardware wallets are being sold, how many metal plates are being sold, how many this and that is being sold. It's still really early, a really small number is actually doing it. And even Bitcoin, even Bitcoin only exchanges. I talk, my sponsor of this podcast is 21 Bitcoin, and they are Bitcoin only. They are actually pushing self custody. They are saying to everyone that is buying Bitcoin through them, put it in self custody. They are having videos on the platform. They are pushing their people to self custody. And even they only have a self custody rate of 60%. 40% of people still hold it on the exchange, even though the exchange pushes them to self custody,
Yeah.
which is really interesting. And like Binance and all those bigger crypto exchanges, they have like self custody rates of 10, 5% or something like that. So how do you see self custody? Like, do you see a world where everybody holds that, or is it always like a minority, that outsider, that the people that actually want to hold it for themselves, will this always be a minority, and most will buy an ETF?
It's about education. The current people who are buying ETF and allowing their wealth to be controlled by the banks are the ones who have been educated through the system itself. Once you understand Bitcoin, it's a new system, it's a new education where you'll have to unlearn the older education and then get this new education of Bitcoin. Because it's all about holding your own um, fruit of labor. You're not giving it to someone else. When you the generation above us, like millennials and all, so they have been giving their entire fruit of labor to the banks, and they do a fractional reserve system. And once you go to, and let's say 1 million people go to the bank and they say they want to withdraw money, they don't have the money. that you know the story how it is. So I feel in future, I feel that once, as I told you, Gen Alpha will lead the society. I think post 2050, this is what I could imagine. Post 2050, the Gen Alpha will lead most of the society, and everyone will be, doing self custody, and somewhere, they will participate in either a group mining or an individual mining with their phones. Like 25 years back, you had television and you had media groups who can run news channel, you can run soaps, you can run so many other things, and now it's easy to open your own YouTube account and you can own your own media. So I feel it could be in a similar fashion where you own your own bank. You have your own bank and you can lend it, or maybe you can self custody it. You can mine Bitcoin in Satoshis, and Satoshis might be in a highest value. This is what I could imagine, far fetched.
Yeah, it's also like interesting what you mentioned with media decentralizing, because like just a few years or just a few decades ago, there
Yeah,
was only this big media houses and big like almost also government financed stuff. They're
yeah,
still there, like they're
yeah,
still living here and they're still big and they're still influencing a lot of people. Like
yeah,
it's not only social media, it's not only YouTube.
yeah,
They are still really, really big, but we see now the shift. And I watch a lot of metrics, for example, what's production minute is costing on
yeah,
television and YouTube. And YouTube is actually now getting to the television level and
yeah,
accelerating above that. It
exactly.
means that a lot of money is going to the new media form, YouTube,
Yeah,
X, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all the platforms. How do you see
yes.
that developing? Is this the future where we only see like we are following more individuals and less networks?
That's again, it's not far from the age what I spoke about, Bitcoin being, the 2050 era. I think this will happen much earlier, because now, some of the I'm not sure of the data, but I saw somewhere on Twitter itself, Harvard and Stanford, the applications are received less in 2022 and 2023. That's what I saw. I'm not sure of that. I need to reconfirm that. With that information, I feel that people at a very young age are understanding that you don't need a college degree to survive. You just need to know how to build a content, which is very easy. You just need a cell phone. You can even buy your mother's or father's cell phone. Start creating content, whatever you like, whatever your interests are. So you create it. And once you create a value, and that value has to come back to you. And that, if it is with Bitcoin, I feel that will be very exponential. And this is where I feel the future, the direction of our future is also.
There- There's another interesting thing. I just saw it on Twitter, just came up to my mind. There's like how private schools, public schools, and homeschooling develops.
Hmm.
Public schools are actually decreasing. Like people get their kids more and more out of public schools, and homeschooling is increasing a lot. Like
Yeah,
I think it was like 70% growing from year to year, from this year to last year.
yeah,
And I think since 2020 it started this whole thing because parents were forced to homeschool, and then
yeah,
some of them like, oh, it actually works fine, and people the kids are with me and I can enjoy that. It's different for everyone, because some parents are like, oh, I want I want my kids to be in the school.
yeah, yeah,
So private school is increasing, public school is decreasing, and homeschooling is just exploding overall. I don't
exploding.
have
Yeah,
kids, like I'm just 25, so I don't have a strong opinion on that. But I talk with a lot of Bitcoiners, and especially those who have kids. They're like, I want to homeschool, or they are even now homeschooling. Some don't have the possibility to homeschool. You also have to have the luxury to homeschool your kids.
yeah. I also see a future where, someone who has started creating content at the age of 13 or 15, and by the time when Bitcoin becomes a unit of account, right, at that stage, medium of exchange, and then when it crosses that, I feel that, a person or a human being can provide value to the society until 25 or 26. And if you can see every 4 years after the halving, and Bitcoin is like shooting up around 10x and 15x, right? and the mass adoption happens, I feel a human being can work with creativity for almost 8 to 10 years, accumulate Satoshi, and he can basically live his life for free because every Satoshi is, increasing its value. And the other commodities and things around you, like banana or car or house, the value is decreasing. So it becomes super affordable and super cheap. And your life can be like, by the time you're 25 or 27, you can basically live off on satoshis, and you can do whatever you want, travel the world, experience the nature, swim in the river. You can do whatever you want with your family. This is where I feel a big difference might happen once Bitcoin becomes unit of account, and forever.
It's also an
What do you
interesting
think?
future because when you think about it, we are always getting better in producing stuff. Like when you think about our phone, our technology, 10 years ago, to do
Mm.
exactly what we are doing right now, very
Yeah,
complicated and very expensive. Right
yeah,
now, I'm paying a small subscription to Riverside, and it's
mm,
basically free. Like it's
yeah,
as if you calculate the whole cost. Like what would it cost for you to come to Austria, sit down with me in a studio and record this whole thing? Like this would be a whole theater. Like it would be a
yes,
lot of cost involved. But
yeah,
now with Riverside, it's basically free. It's like I don't know, I pay like 200 euros a year or something like that.
mm,
So when we extrapolate that out in the future with everything,
mm,
we're getting better in producing bananas. To stay with
yeah,
that example, we're getting better and efficient to producing houses. We're getting better and efficient to producing everything we are consuming.
yeah,
And with robotics and maybe even AI that takes jobs up that we don't need to do, then we're coming to a point where the people actually have to work less and less to have the same standard of living. So we are coming into a deflationary, abundant future,
yeah.
and that's a crazy world to see. Do you have any? Do you have any future vision for that kind of a thought, like Bitcoin, abundant future, like next 100 years? It's difficult to see, but it's. I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts about that.
Uh, I don't want to see more than 100 years or so, but I would definitely like to see my children when they are probably around 15 to 20. I think if Bitcoin becomes unit of account before that, or maybe around somewhere around that, I think they will be very lucky. They will work very less in their life. They will enjoy their life when they have that, muscular energy with them until 35 and 45, and they will work towards, happy moments of their life. Because, you know, let me put it across this way: how many life you have got?
Yeah, it's just
Just
one.
one. Just one. No Robins here in in the past, or no Robins here in the future, right? This is what we need to understand. It's one life. And my dad's life, one life, was always around working hard to make ends meet. That's not something we need to do. We need to be very aware, and I feel we have to fight for that right. Make Bitcoin adoption for the masses so that our children live a fantastic life, and we should be able to see that with our bare eyes.
Yeah, it's so true, and it's I think a beautiful thought to think about that kind of a future. Um,
Yeah,
we have a special episode, kind of, because you prepared a question also for me.
yeah,
If you want, we can get to some of your interesting, most like one, two interesting question if you want to do that. Usually, I don't do the podcast over an hour, so we like one, two question we can definitely get to,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then
One to
we when we have the end routine also in the podcast where like a previous guest asks you a question. This
Mhm.
is so then the end of the podcast. So if you have one or two questions that is really interesting you want to ask me, then I think now would be the perfect timing.
Oh yeah. So as an experienced podcaster, so now I think you have reached 25. This is the 25th episode for you, or
Actually,
26th?
it's my 63rd episode because I
Okay.
have so many episodes in the backlog. Like I have, I think, one whole month of episodes that I did not release. So it's like more than
Okay.
you see from the YouTube.
Okay. As an experienced podcaster in the Bitcoin space alone, how do you navigate the balance between providing accessible content for the newcomers and offering in-depth analysis for seasoned enthusiasts in the podcast episodes.
Oh, that's so hard. And I think about that a lot. So like, because I have a lot of Bitcoiners on. I had Jeff Booth on. I have Natalie Brunel on. I have a physicist on that talks about the Bitcoin power law. I have so many different kind of people on that are in different stages of their Bitcoin journey. And the interesting thing is, I try to keep it simple. And I'm not afraid to ask the stupid question. I'm not like I'm always asking like, actually I don't understand this. What is that meaning? Even sometimes, even if I understand it, because I always have this in my mind, and I think I never talked about that actually. I have a cousin of mine in my mind. I have my girlfriend in mind. I have my mother in mind. I have my father in mind. When I hear something on the podcast, I'm like, do they understand this? Because they're not as deep as me in Bitcoin. Do they
Yeah.
understand this? Because we have to recognize in every Bitcoin conversation, there is someone in there that is completely new to the topic, that just started learning about Bitcoin today. There's
Yeah.
there's someone that just got the video. Maybe this is like someone that wants to be a badminton player. I put like something with badminton player in the thumbnail, and they're like, "Oh, Bitcoin and badminton. That sounds interesting." He clicked on it, and he's listening now. So I always try to keep it uh, watchable for someone that is new. And I always, even if I go to the deeper questions and deeper things, I try to keep it low level, like so that everyone can understand.
Understand.
But it's hard because it's not always easy, because we are
Yeah.
talking about Bitcoin and we are just further down the rabbit hole. And when both are further down the rabbit hole and he's starting here, then it's like he's thinking like, what are those two weird guys talking about?
Yes, that's actually a great connection because even I connected like that. Because most of the podcasts, Bitcoin podcasts, are about the people who are at least 8 years, experience in this. But you have a variety of Bitcoiners who we have never heard of, and that immediately clicks in our minds that okay, somebody like us, let's hear them out. That's a
Yeah,
fantastic thing.
I invited, I think 10 people are now from the 60 people that were on the first podcast with my podcast. And I
Mm.
put yesterday a tweet out,
Including me.
I was putting yesterday a tweet out and saying, I want this year 300 Bitcoiners on my podcast. And I put a picture of Hal Finney.
Mm.
So if you know who this guy is, DM me. I want you to be on my podcast. So of course there are people that are on the first podcast ever with their in their journey, and for some it's difficult. I had Bitcoiners on that were really nervous with the podcast. I really had to guide them through the podcast, and I had once a second take. We did 40 minutes, and he was so not happy with it, so we put like a second take on that. And that's totally fine. Like it was his first podcast. He never talked in front of the camera before, so that's a big, huge thing. But I want those stories too. And this story was actually one of my 10 best videos ever. And people are like, oh, I like that story so much, because it's not that Jeff Booth story that you already heard 20 times already.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
it's really interesting and important to have those newbies and this normal plebs people that are not on every podcast on. So that's
correct.
why I'm doing 5 podcasts a week. I'm forced to bring everyone on.
That's a great contribution. I think that's a story. I think next 15 years somebody will remember, and I think many of them will remember. So, out of three questions, my second question would be: what is the best moment, or maybe you can explain three best moments where you felt like, oh, mind blowing in your podcast?
I mean, I talked about him today already a lot. This was a big moment for me because I look up to Jeff Booth a lot. So
Hmm.
having him, the one of my 3 favorite Bitcoin guys, it's like Michael Saylor, Jeff Booth, maybe Jack Mallers, and like there are like not a lot of Bitcoiners that I'm like looking up like that North Star. Like they're like, wow, they understand Bitcoin on a high level and they can actually explain it also really, really good. And Jeff Booth is for me in this bucket. And when he started following me on X, and then I messaged him, hey, do you want to be on my podcast? And he said, yes, sure, let's do it. I was like, what? What just happened? And then I had him on. This was a huge moment for me. Honestly, I did not hear anything that I did not know on the podcast. To be honest, I listened to him so much that whatever he said on the podcast, I already knew. I still tried to keep the podcast interesting and new, but it was just a really huge moment for me. Then there was another moment where I had someone on that was on my podcast the first time, like first podcast for him. And he talked about the concept that Bitcoin is a system that is based on love. And I was like, what are you talking about? Why is it based on love? It's a mathematics systems. And he talked about what is important in love and when do you have a really good love relationship with someone else. And he talked about the values you have. You have to trust the other person. You have to be so sure that the other person does not do anything bad to you, that you can have a trustless relationship. And he talked about the connections between that. That was completely new for me. I never thought about Bitcoin in that way before. And it was interesting to see and interesting to hear that Bitcoin is a system based on love. That was really, really cool. This was my two moments that just came up to in my mind. If I think about it more, I think there will be 20 more moments that will come up. But in general, I really like doing the interviews with every guest. There's something new coming. Like I have now 63 interviews in not even 3 months. I did it like this. No, 3 months it's now. December, January, and February. I did in 3 months 63 interviews. It's a lot of interviews on a daily basis, and every guest is bringing something new in. And I see how my communication skills are getting better, how my confidence is getting better because I'm kind of adapt to different persons. So in general, I really like podcasting, like just doing those things. But there are a lot of moments that I could do moments from every podcast basically. If this answers your questions.
Yeah, perfectly. The love thing was fascinating. I did
Yeah,
not see it that lens the way he said it. It's beautiful. Yeah,
yeah. I think it's my
it matches
third.
the values. Sorry again. Come again.
I think it's my third podcast episode. If someone wants to check it out, it's big on the thumbnail. Bitcoin is a system based on love. I think my third or second or fourth episode or something like that. For people that want to check it out, it's really, really. I can highly recommend it. It was completely different to what I ever heard about them.
Nice. So my last question would be: in the future, what moment could really satisfy you? They say it like, what's your tombstone moment? What do you want people to, feel about you when you're not there, right? So my question again is like, what satisfies you on that particular moment when you reach maybe 100 or 300 interviews in your podcast?
Wow, that's a big question. What I have, and it's sometimes hard for me to have this. I have this hero complex, and I name it like that. I have this thing that when there is a problem in the family or in my friend circle, I really want to fix it for them. Like I have this drive in me that I want to be the hero for other people. I don't know why it came really early for me, and that's why I'm really driven. Also, like I have, right now I'm only doing this, but I had for like over 1 year a full time job, and I did the podcast, and I did my tweets. I grew from 600 followers to 10K followers last year just from my Twitter. Now I started YouTube. I started growing from 200 to and now 1,000 followers in 2 months. So I'm doing so much work, and I want to be bigger, because I just want to. And this sounds really weird, and I never spoke out loud about that on a podcast. But I want to really provide for family and friends, and be there if someone needs me. This is weird because in my family, everyone is kind of well off. Like I'm in a good middle class family. Like I'm not in a poor family where they need my help, but I still have this where I'm like, I want to be in a position where I can help someone.
Yeah.
And I think my podcast will help me in that pursuit, but I don't know how. And I will try to get there. But I think if on the tombstone is like he was there for other people, this would be something I would be proud of.
Wow. So you have that leadership quality in you. Fantastic.
I'm actually interested in what this question I want to give back to you also. If you allow me, I really want to hear
Yeah.
what you are saying to this.
So today, I had taken my wife to her colleague's son's birthday, 1 year birthday. So I was just unable to sit there because, people were just like, I mean, it's not so right to say, but I was feeling like they were so stupid, talking about so many things which I did not like, there was no interest for me. And my wife asked me, well, I come back. So why were you so off? Why were you not involved with all of us? I said, there is something in me which is, rising rapidly. And what was that? And I told her that, I want to provide many things for my family. There is so much, a pain in some of my friends and my, cousins that, they always crib about their life. There is so much of debt around. There is so much of unhealthiness, unhappiness in relationships and love. How can we fix it? What can we do for them? And I feel very responsible being an elderly person, elderly cousin out of my 10 cousins. So I really want to be that guy, as you said, right? So if someone feels that, I can fix it, and I need to be there at that moment. And that really satisfies me. You know, that is what something, I would like to look forward in future.
Amazing, yeah. It's.
That's
I
where we
think
connected both, I think.
Yeah, I think it's great, and it drives a lot, because if
Yeah.
you only driven for yourself, you will be at some point be exhausted. But if you are driven for other people, your drive will go on forever. I think this it's a good
So
motivator.
do you think this thought process could have come from understanding Bitcoin deeply? Because when the money is fixed, I think almost every other puzzle is fixed.
It's a fundamental to it. Like Bitcoin is so fun because there are a lot of people in Bitcoin that say like, oh, Bitcoin is just money. Like, don't put it in all those categories and it fixes everything and stuff like that. But Bitcoin touches everything in our life because it's money. Whenever
Mm.
people are doing something with each other, they're transacting energy, and we are having money to get like a point system to it. And the point system is now fiat, but Bitcoin would be a more fair point system, because then there's not a central bank stealing the life energy from you.
Yeah.
So if then we don't have someone else stealing from us
Yeah.
and saying the stealing is good for us, then we search everywhere else with the finger, like, okay, if the stealing, the inflation is good, but I'm not happy. Like, where can I find the wrong person? Like, and I think if we fix that fundamental layer of money, there's a lot more trust in our society back, because all
Mm.
of the sudden we don't have to trust on the money part. In
Yes.
the relationship between people, money is like it's clear.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm just a dreamful person, but I think this will fix a lot of problems with Bitcoin, because money is so fundamental to us. Yeah. We're coming now over 1 hour to the end routine,
Yeah.
unfortunately, to our podcast.
Yeah.
It was a
It was
pleasure
fantastic.
talking.
I
It
just
was,
couldn't feel the time passing by.
yeah,
It's
it's
great.
like over 1 hour. It was like that. Wow.
Yeah.
Our last question is always a question from our previous guest that has a question for the next guest without knowing who is the next guest, actually. And he has a
Mm.
Bitcoin question, and he asked, will colonies on Mars use Bitcoin?
No,
Interesting.
because the person who takes us to the Mars will have a company, and if he doesn't, or she doesn't, or the company doesn't allow them to use Bitcoin fully, I think they might not use
Interesting. Yeah, it will be definitely interesting how we colonize Mars, and I think Elon Musk will be more probably the person. he, will,
it.
he will use Dogecoin.
I don't know. This is how I think. But yeah, the
Yeah,
governance part, right? So I still feel there is a lot of innovations to be happening in the
yeah,
next layer of Bitcoin. We are
definitely.
still pre Amazon, we are still pre Facebook, we are still pre Twitter.
Yes,
Those moments yet to come, because the real sharp Gen Alpha people are still yet to come in the industry. And
one
once they
hundred percent.
come, they will have that Einstein moment, and they can create some innovation.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
my belief.
totally agree. We are really early on, and we're
Yeah,
like before the 2000
yeah,
.com bubble. We are still before that. The iPhone is still 10, 15 years away, and the moment is still coming up. Thank you,
yeah.
Mohit, for coming on the
Thank you.
podcast, taking the time. It was really a
Thank
pleasure
you.
to talk with you. And yeah, I'm looking for like where can people before we get off? Where can people find you the best? Where can people get in touch with you if they want to ask you directly questions?
Yeah, so I have my website, www.mohitkamat.com. You can see it on the comments below or in the description. Robin can help you there, or you can just get in touch with me via DM in Twitter. My Twitter name is the FoMohit.
Perfect. Then thank you for taking the time, and we see you
Yes.
soon.
Thank you for inviting me. Chalo, bye bye.